Hi there. We just reached mid-season on House of the Dragon. I know already stupid 8-episode seasons, but still, we just passed episode 4, which is the midpoint of season 3. So, spur of the moment, I realized I should dash off an unofficial review of the first half of the season so far. Really more of an informal check-in. By dash it off, I mean, off the top of my head, I'm doing this audio only, unedited, with no animations or anything, just to get it out quickly. It's a check-in. Also, at the end, I'll give a channel schedule update, because I've been really busy with one thing or another the first 3 weeks of the season, but now I'm getting vacation time up. I have a lot more time to get onto backlogged lore videos I wanted to do. But to start up front with my primary conclusion, this is the point of the entire video. My view is that as much as it was physically possible to turn this show around in 4 episodes, they have. That everything that only 4 episodes could have been doing, they did. So far, at least, everything's great. Real question is, will that be enough? I don't know. That's a wider thing, but as much as 4 episodes could prove, no, they've turned it around, I think they did everything they possibly could do. Just thinking of the multi-disaster pileup that hit the show in season 2 was unprecedented. Things that were genuinely beyond the control of the showrunners. And my biggest target for criticism for my entire channel on a scale of years isn't, oh, I don't like this writer, I don't like Benioff and Weiss, but the media circus, the media environment that isn't producing an informed public anymore. That just as the media then wasn't really reporting on what Benioff is saying is deeply absurd, it's incompetent, this is actually really unusual what they're doing here, it turned into hype culture, puff piece articles and things. That's the real problem, the infotainment industrial complex, that this isn't real reporting, you're just peddling easy answers if you're not outright praising them. And even online with fans, it's easier to just go, Kathleen Kennedy hates our souls, versus, this is a Marvel show, she doesn't even work on this, what are you talking about? So we knew, most channel heads, actual channel heads on YouTube, knew these were all these studio things that were beyond the writer's control. General audience, I think, were so uninformed by the media, and it's the media's fault, that they took advantage of everyone. A lot of people weren't even aware there was a writer's strike at the time. That they were forced to film during a writer's strike with their rough draft scripts, which is why it felt unpolished that they weren't allowed to do live rewrites, which by definition need to happen live, not before it comes. And I think it's that whole big lie mentality of when someone does something so crazy it seems unbelievable, it just doesn't register, that, yeah, David Zaslav literally cut the last 2 episodes off of one of his flagship franchises. Literally cut off the battle climax. This is literally episodes 9 and 10. They were already scripted. And while I could say this 2 years ago, I don't call people stupid for this, that it is so unbelievable. That, yeah, it's unbelievable that how could a studio CEO do something this insane? It's really mind-boggling when you look back, and it blindsided me. Even right at the end of season 2, I was really shaken. I didn't think Zaslav could do that. I thought they were splitting it across multiple seasons or something. No. And even then, well, it's weird seeing people in the last few weeks, even seeing just the first episode, just stunned and at a loss for words, and then saying in their reactor videos, dear God, that really was the planned season 2 ending, and the studio head really did something this absurd as to split apart his own. This is a flagship thing. That the fact that Zaslav did it made people almost think it was normal. No, this is ridiculous. So they had the rough cuts, and it was still a decent content. Obviously, there wasn't really an ending to it, but we got it now. And then, unrelated to all of that, yes, there were creative differences between Martin and Condal, which I'm hoping were, well, within limits. We'll see that, but so many people were conflating those and co-opting, oh, Martin must hate that they ended it. They did not intend to end it that way. And just, it's more than one thing piling up at the same time. On top of that, this is a stretch of the books where the main trio doesn't do that much. Like, you'd have to invent material for Daemon, for Rhaenyra, even for Alicent. But then the corresponding parts of the book to season 3, like the fall of King's Landing and Rhaenyra taking over, suddenly Rhaenyra and Daemon have a lot to do. So some of it's source material issues, some of it is blatantly the studio stuff. All of this piled up. My point being, I can't think of another time a show is affected by external factors this badly. Thinking back to, like, prior strikes, like even other shows during this recent strike in 23, the 2007 strike. I mean, I know Breaking Bad had a shortened first season, but it was still really good. And other things, I can't really see another. Can you guys think of another time where the ending to a season was literally cut off like that? And just how weird it was. This was an unprecedented disaster. And by unprecedented, I mean I don't have an example of a show bouncing back from something on that scale. So I know what to think. But from my perspective, for me, I felt the first 4 episodes did as much as they could to redeem them. General public might be less forgiving. Really fixating on that I'm starting to see some admitting, oh, wait a minute, this was blatantly the real ending to season 2. It really was cut off. The writing and pacing are a lot better. The flow is so much better by episode 3. Yeah, because we're allowed to do live rewrites again. That I think it's starting to become obvious to everyone that seeing is believing. They had to act, because we've heard excuses from showrunners before. For these showrunners, no, it really wasn't our fault. It was the studio and the strike and all these things. And the fact that nothing I could say could really prove that the past 2 years. People needed to see it to prove it. But, as I said, after all that backlash and just the venom of this, because it's what the internet has turned into, it's turned into monetizing discontent and negativity because being provocative trends higher. But I said, after all that backlash, a couple of months later, I said I need to develop a measured assessment that we can look down quantifiably of what parts got hurt the most that need to be fixed. This is not an investigative report. We know the underlying reason for most of these was writer's strike, and the ending was literally cut off. Like, that's the first point on here, is the ending was literally cut off. But still, I wanted to go through, based on results, not cause, what are the top things that needed to be fixed in season 3? And I developed this over a year ago. I've been talking about it. And then premiere week, right before the season 3 premiere, I made a big video sharing it and going down, guys, this is the checklist of things season 3 needs to fix. That makes everything nice and measurable. Like, what wouldn't be on the list is something like how season 2 did Aegon. Even the most vehement critics thought Aegon had a really good season in season 2. There were invented scenes like Aegon talking to Larys after he comes out of his coma, crying, no, you're permanently crippled from this. Great dialogue, brilliant acting by Tom Glynn-Carney. He was a standout of season 2, so from a writing and acting and story perspective, no one had a problem with Aegon. He didn't need to be fixed. These are the things that I feel most people were looking at. Even if I didn't mind some of them too much, these were the 7 things I thought you really needed to fix to turn the show around. Quickly revisiting that, I'm not going to read them all off, they've fixed all but 2 of these already. I mean, because key point here is point 1 was the most obvious. Actually deliver the big action climax that season 2 is building up to. Actually show the Battle of the God. And key point, a lot of people don't understand, 90%, over 90% of audience criticism was generated by this point alone. That I knew this was more important than every other thing put together, because a general audience doesn't know what book changes are. By definition, a TV-only audience doesn't know what book changes are. And people try to make the straw man argument, oh, this is just like when Benioff and Weiss changed book things long before they ran out of book material, like Sansa or Dorne or Stannis. No, we were complaining about them because the changes were nonsense. That's why even non-book readers were also saying the Dorne stuff is ridiculous, the Sansa stuff, it wasn't just book fans versus TV fans on the Sansa Bolton stuff. It wasn't just TV fans versus book fans on the Stannis stuff, or that by the point they had surpassed the books, and it was season 7 really couldn't point to, oh, well, you just don't like how we adapted it. No, because you've surpassed everything. This is just terrible, illogical writing with the White Hunt and everything and teleporting around. It's not that changes are inherently bad. I never see an adaptation as 100%, because that's why it's an adaptation. This is just betting off why it's so bad as a TV show. So a concept I keep trying to tell everyone for 2 years was what matters most is what the general audience thinks, and 90% of this was the ending was literally cut off. And I mostly think, I hope, but I mostly think from what I've seen that as much as it could, actually getting that ending, so many people going, this is blatantly the season 2 ending now, at the start of season 3, has really turned things around for a lot of people. That it's so weird. The surreal environment of watching I made it a point to watch the top dozen or so YouTube live reactor channels, things with hundreds of thousands of subscribers, the big ones. Just how stunned they were after the credits rolled in their reaction videos to the first episode alone. Just watching Battle of the Gullet and everything that happened in the whole episode, not just that, openly saying, wow, this is obviously the ending. So it's going to be weird. I'm looking ahead to like December when people have, looking back on TV as a whole in 2026, what were the biggest surprise hits? What were the biggest surprise flops? I still don't know. I mean, I think The Boys did respectably because it had to wrap up a lot of storyline. That was a big thing. Invincible was also really good. But tell me in the comments, what were the other surprises, either good or bad, of the years so far? A lot of people were surprised by Night of the Seven Kingdoms because they weren't familiar with it and how structurally different it was from Game of Thrones. But that was a good surprise. Just, oh, we weren't familiar with it and now it's a hit. It's a new thing. Will the other one be, look at how this show has resurrected itself? I mean, I'm thinking of, like, I'm going to hate myself for this example. After people loved Euphoria seasons 1 and 2, they kind of hyped up that The Idol show was supposed to be a big anchor of last year or something, and it turned into a mega flop. Something on that scale of what were the biggest surprises, good or bad. Were there, or like Pluribus, people didn't really know. That wasn't that much of a surprise. People knew Vince Gilligan is a genius. Still, this will be one of the biggest surprises of the year is not one, but 2 hit Game of Thrones shows after it was declared a dead franchise for over a year again. So, I'm talking about this so much because point 1 is 90% of what matters. The general audience who doesn't care about all that other story stuff, just getting the action climax, the narrative, not just the battles, but the narrative conclusions and everything. That's what mattered, just cohesively. And other people would project their own culture war things onto this, or the book fan things, which we always have, some of which I agree with, of, oh, well, they really shouldn't have cut this, they shouldn't have done that. Overall, what matters is doing this as a TV show. This was beyond the showrunner's control, and now their story has been told in the first 2 episodes. That was blatantly fixed. I'm not going to read off all the other points, because they were also things that really got fixed, like Corlys and the Velaryons felt underused in Season 2. I wasn't really worried about that, because I knew it was inherently tied to the massive naval battle the Velaryons are going to be in that got pushed back a season. So by the end of Episode 2, I said point 2 is officially fixed. Corlys and Velaryons need both more stuff to do, both action and narratively drama into, oh, I'm finally legitimizing my son and the conflict this will make with Rhaenyra. All of that is fixed. Another one was Helaena felt a bit underused relative to the setup they had given her as a TV character. She'd done all of her book stuff. I mean, as a TV character, it felt like they were setting up more. They might have even intended more. Now, by the end of Episode 4, they worked back in Helaena is pregnant. A Helaena pregnancy storyline, some version of the Maelor the Missing thing. This had never occurred to any of this. I'm telling you, even the spy community, which I've been really doing all these set reports, filming leak reports, scrutinizing them for 2 years, we had not even a hint of this. It wasn't even, oh, we heard a rumor we didn't believe, so I didn't pass it on to you guys. This was never even hinted at or suggested by a single source. That I found out when you found out. The Helaena pregnancy, what? This was one of the central things Martin was angry about, and this really forces a lot of reassessments of, did they course correct the show? I don't know, but in terms of physical screen time, we'll see what they actually do with Helaena. The point is, she physically wasn't doing much on screen. Whether it's good or not is a separate question that'll come up when it comes up. Helaena is having a lot. She was very prominent in the first 4 episodes, even before the pregnancy stuff. Just, she'd never had a conversation back and forth with her own sister Rhaenyra before. Suddenly she's having talk with Rhaenyra, and so Corlys and Velaryons are fixed, Helaena is fixed. Aemon, I'm counting as fixed because we know he's just started his storyline with Alice Rivers, which I'm pretty sure is going to fix that. So I am officially not keeping a 7-point checklist anymore, because 5 of these things were addressed in one way or another, or like the Starks content really needs to be in a Regency show more than this. The first 5 points are not issues anymore for me. There are only 2 points of concern, and 2 points does not make a list. Those 2 remaining things, well, the first I'm actually not that worried about. Alicent needs to have a more adversarial relationship with Rhaenyra again. It'll never quite be the book, I know that. Then again, neither was Season 1, and we were all praising it. That balance of, yeah, it's kind of friendship, romantic, maybe tension, but it's never friendship again. I compared it to, Professor X versus Magneto, that tension is the source of drama. If they ever became complete enemies or complete friends, that ruins the dynamic. And I said, looking back, the first 2 episodes, I didn't like how they handled Alicent. But after that, there was a major course correct. It was like a switch went off in episode 3, and suddenly they're yelling at, because her father was killed. She's a prisoner. She's not being let go as promised. Rhaenyra's getting more ruthless after Jace's death, profoundly affected her, and Rhaenyra's really looking like she's going to be on her dark turn now. Related to this, it's all one big thing, is some were worried that they're whitewashing Rhaenyra and that she won't have her ruthless turn as she did in the book. Really, they are doing that now. You can see that now. So I'm not really afraid of it anymore. We'll see how things go in the second half of the season. Didn't like it in the first 2 episodes. Overall, the last 2, 3, and 4, really course corrected. Not fully yet. Then again, Rhaenyra is going to be... The Helaena pregnancy is probably going to drive an even bigger wedge with Rhaenyra. Because Alicent will not let harm come to Helaena and her new baby, and they'll be yelling about this. So that's on track to being fixed. Even if it was great, really great consistently, I couldn't judge such a thing till after the season was over, but I'm feeling pretty confident in it. In terms of the reaction to the general public, I don't see people yelling as much about, oh, Rhaenyra and Alicent are going to run off together. Really, you see them fighting more. Yeah, it's more of a gentle, house arrest, but room for improvement. But I see that they're having a descent arc for Rhaenyra, so I'm not really worried about it. Just overall. Also, I said giving an amnesty for the first 2 episodes were a little overstuffed, a little clunky. We knew that because they're episodes 9 and 10 of last season. Really did not like when Iron Rod assaults Alicent. Is that like a relic of some other scene? I'm going to make a video about that. But I said, because it's in the first 2 episodes, I am willing to leave it in the past, as problems happened because of the strike is a wide umbrella. I would say things were weird in the first 2 episodes, one or two places, scenes moved around, whatever. And that didn't really affect anything again. So put all that under strike-affected stuff. 3 and 4 were so good that I'm fine. Alicent and Rhaenyra developing a more adversarial relationship again, while Rhaenyra gets more ruthless, and you see her cracking down on street graffiti and stuff. This is not whitewashing Rhaenyra. Of the 2 things I'm still worried about actively, I'm not really that worried about that one. It seems on track, though for all we know, they'll do something silly later on. Really, the one thing I am worried about that really concerns me is, like I've said, merging Rhaena-Nettles. There's no way around this. Everything else people complained about, oh, they're changing this, oh, they're going to make Rhaenyra and Alicent friends and run off together. They're not really going to do that, not to that extent. this was the biggest change they've done. And even, they even reversed the Maelor thing that suddenly Helena's pregnant again. No one saw that coming. This has now happened. Rhaena being the rider, sheep stealer, and Nettles not existing is now a thing. As I said going in, accepting as a given that they have merged these characters, just accepting that as a given, Rhaena was barely in Season 2. That this new merged condensation character isn't even being developed very well. What little we saw was good because Phoebe Campbell's a good actor. It's just I wanted more scenes in the Vale. There were 2 scenes with Jane Eyre, which were pleasant and well acted, but they needed more than that. It was a real shortcoming, and again, because Season 2 had time problems. Maybe they intended more that got deleted because of all of that. This stuff was supposed to be in Season 2 for the first 2 episodes. Just, in terms of raw screen time, you barely even devoted anything to it. And on top of that, you have to present to us that this merger was worth it. That, as opposed to knee-jerk yelling about him, just, okay, that's a decision, I really disagree with it. Demonstrate to me that this works as a TV show. Because the real measure, again, is what do the TV-only audiences think of it. Whereas TV-only audiences could say, the Sansa Season 5 stuff makes no sense, and I don't even know the books. The plot, I've talked about this in separate videos, the plot mechanics of this decently makes sense. I'm not really sure how they're going to fit it in. It is a big change. Butterfly affected everything, but it's not that it's actively causing problems yet. But I will say that it has yet to impress me. They have yet to convince me that this was worth it. Even though, scene by scene, they are enjoyable, that Phoebe Campbell's a really good actor, design of Sheep Stealer is great, individual elements of it are pretty good. It just hasn't impressed me yet. And it is physically getting more screen time. Then again, I said episode 4, they crammed what should have been a mini-arc of 3 episodes into one scene. Granted, it was a good scene of when Daemon finds Rhaena, but so much was happening crammed into that scene. So much it had to achieve of a character she's never had scenes with her father before, and now say all the stuff she was doing off screen with Sheep Stealer. She's getting more time, but she needs even more than that. And in terms of the direction they're doing it, everything I don't know. So it's not actively detracting from it yet, but it isn't impressing me. But like I said, in episode 1 and everything, the actors are openly saying this has payoff in the second half of the season. The big episode for Rhaena is episode 6. I know Benioff wants to go, oh no, later, next season. This isn't a next season payoff. They said in a couple episodes there's this big Rhaena episode. Okay, I've waited 2 years, I might as well wait another 3 weeks to see what's so great about Rhaena in episode 6. I have to see it before I can judge it. There isn't a checklist of things to fix anymore. It's just there's 2 big points on which I'm concerned. Alicent and Rhaenyra, and the merged Rhaena-Nettles. And for Alicent, Rhaenyra is pretty much on her descent arc at this point. It's just that Alicent is a little different from the book. We'll see how they do. As long as she's not friends with Rhaenyra, but starts to scheme against her because she feels she's turning into a villain, I'll be fine. Within reason. But as much as they could have turned that around within 4 episodes, they've taken significant steps to doing that. I don't walk around worried about it. I'm seeing fewer people yelling, oh, Alicent, Rhaenyra, Rhaenysant's going to do all of that, while still the Rhaenysant fans are enjoying the tension of it. The Rhaena-Nettles stuff a general audience wouldn't even know about, and I'll have to see how much that changes the endgame on everything, but overall it's making for good television. I even still feel, I never felt an adaptation to be in 100% text to screen. Even Lord of the Rings wasn't 100% text to screen. And you bring up, then why weren't you yelling about Benioff and Weiss? Because that is a mockery of our tolerance for the art of adaptation from one format to another. That they took advantage of our tolerance versus I know the challenges that are facing Condell and Hess with this intentionally unfilmable book. That's an outline, it's a history book, and they had to fill some things in. I knew that. How is everyone else reacting to this, though? Because it's a divided demographic. It's not just one uniform group. You have the TV casuals, I think, generally felt like I thought they would, that after the first 2 episodes, oh, this is great again. This is the real season 2 ending. It was just delayed. And they're still processing that, coming to terms with it, but they generally went over. We knew they would. As for TV critics, the serious crowd that are still TV only, you're within only 2 episodes, we are seeing a groundswell of support for no one directing this, just groundswell, everyone watching it going, Emma Darcy needs an Emmy for this. Rightly so. That it went from, oh, well, we don't talk about this, it underperformed in season 2, it's not really an Emmy level thing anymore. Wow, is this a shoo-in for the Emmy shortlist? I didn't intend to alliterate with that, I just did it. But we are seeing Emmy buzz for this, HBO openly saying we are really confident in the rough cuts we saw, we're going to be in advance, they are planning a big Emmy campaign for this. So don't be worried about that. So in terms of the TV critic crowd and, our news sites covering it again, yes, they are really treating it as a buzzworthy thing again for the award circuit TV reviewer types. As for the book fandom, people who read the books, book readers like me, we're as divided as we ever were. We're even divided on internal book issues that we're always tearing into each other, that's how we roll with our rival theories and everything. But yeah, the book-based fandom that has YouTube channels are generally more forgiving on season 2 because we knew how badly a strike would affect it. We knew there isn't that much material for season 2 for the main characters, that we knew there were problems going in. I've seen it roughly half and half, that I'm seeing some major channels really loving it, like Red Team Review, Quinn the GM, Preston Jacobs criticizes everything, of course, but in a measured way, so that's his way of, then he'll turn around and go, yeah, it was pretty good. So it's not offensive, it's an adaptation. Preston's saying the same things he said about season 1 is my point. And there are others, though, who are really criticizing this isn't the books, well, I knew it wouldn't be. Even the critical book reader channels on YouTube, I have seen grudgingly praising that episode 3 was like a POV chapter turned into an episode, or an episode turned into a POV chapter. That clearly this was made with reverence for the books, but it disagreed with how to portray it. So even from the most negative channels, I am seeing not, the manosphere clickbaiter types, they're not real channels. I mean, of the book channels, I've seen measured responses, mixed feelings at worst. Well, effort went into this. They had some good ideas in this, is the worst I've seen. Others are, like me, are really praising it. Ultimately, my conclusion is no one is more angry than they already were at the end of season 2. And even the biggest critics from within the book fandom are grudgingly admitting that this is turning some things around. And now, really, this is a thing for the second half of season 3, because it ended on that cliffhanger. Wow, you added back the Helaena pregnancy, which was the thing that Martin, at least in his first blog post, turned on the show over. So should be reassessed. Did they ultimately turn around and course correct on that? I don't know, but that's not a first half of season 3 thing. That's a second half thing of how forgiving should we be about these, I think, showrunners who acted in good faith trying to do something. There's 1 or 2 things I'm angry about that I wouldn't have done that are in the past. Like I said, amnesty for the first 2 episodes. 3 and 4 were brilliant. 4 was a setup episode in a good way. It's character dynamics, moving things forward. Episode 5 has the payoff to a lot of that. I think people are outright stunned at how good season 3 has been. On the other hand, it comes off of an unprecedented disaster after season 2. There is no precedent for any of this. Even if this was the perfect season, as a given, if you said this was the perfect season, could anything come back from what happened with season 2 in the public consciousness? At a certain point, you have to go, I don't care. For the level of quality I wanted, this satisfies me personally. I don't know what the public impact is going to be, though like I said, the general audience is, the TV-only audience is the public impact, and what they wanted was the season 2 ending, and then they got it in the first episode. I don't know. The thing I've always said is, after Game of Thrones Season 5 was so bad, with so many offensive changes, like TV Dorn and the Sansa stuff, it never entered my mind at all that Season 6 could turn public opinion around. Season 6 was not a good season. It was simply a bigger budgeted one, and was throwing in like the book things like the Hodor reveal they openly admitted was from Martin himself. But Battle of the Bastards, I was gaping at the screen going, the North didn't remember. The plot makes no sense. But how much even today people hold that up as this shining example of television. They cynically threw money at the screen for a large-scale spectacle of nonsense, and you praised it as amazing, and you should be ashamed of that. Because they took advantage of you. They played us all for fools. By that point, I'd already, seen through everything. This is just pandering kit for Emmys and stuff. But it was so surreal going from after season 5 thinking this franchise will never rise again. This show is dead, just in terms of popularity, to then after season 6. And I'm still angry about that for over a year between the season 6 finale and the season 7 premiere, Benioff and Weiss walked on water and were untouchable, and you were not allowed to criticize anything they had done. The Sansa stuff, the Dorne stuff, you don't talk anymore. The hype train that silenced us, the Watchers on the Wall types, everyone. Don't think I've forgotten that. Don't think any of us have forgotten what they did to silence us, any more than like people who were complaining about Joss Whedon years before he was later outed as really abusive behind the scenes, who were really vehemently dismissed in 2017, only for 4 years later, everything to spill out, and just, you think we're going to forget that the groups that tried to silence this criticism, and how dare you even mention there are problems when there's obvious evidence coming up and all of that. Still, we went from just looking at the general, actually go and pick a couple of major 100,000 subscriber YouTube live reactor channels and skip to the end of their post credits on their episode 1 reactions. What a loss for words they're at, and eventually saying, this was the season 2 ending, we were wrong to be yelling about it for 2 years. And then within another episode going after the big reacting to Jace's death scene, Emma Darcy needs an Emmy win for this, not nomination, win. Now, I thought it was really for all the complex stuff going on in episode 3, which then really placated the book fans. Like I said, that even if you're a book reader didn't like this that much, this was clearly made by a fan of the books. It's structured like a POV chapter. Just how much things have changed relative to a month ago in terms of the discourse. And I don't think a lot of people have time to process it yet, because when they announce something is dead, but then after season 5, they declared we thought it was dead, and then suddenly, this is the best show ever made. You do not even get to publicly voice criticisms about it. Was so surreal. So my point is, if season 6, a bad season, could become the greatest show in history, season 3 with good writers and there were problems genuinely beyond their control, like the strike, yeah, we have seen some things bounce back from a really bad season in terms of success, if not in quality. This I actually feel is up to that quality level, but splitting hairs on what the heck is the audience reaction going to be on a general level. At this point, viewership numbers don't really matter because they're already pretty much renewed through season 4 anyway. It's more of a prestige thing. But we won't know the full viewership stuff until a couple of weeks after the finale, because you need the post 1 week, you need the post 1 month numbers. People coming back to it slowly, so I'm not obsessing over those. The post 3 days thing thinks viewership might have gone down 8%, which isn't that bad considering season 2 premiere was down 14% from season 1 finale. You kind of expect that after a 2-year gap. Will it suddenly increase again as word of mouth goes, no, they fixed the show. You can't predict something like that. If you were to say, no, that'll never happen, it could. I'm not sitting around waiting for it to happen, just you cannot know something like that. Weirder things have happened. So that's all my thoughts on the first half of season 3. As much as they could have fixed anything, barring 1 or 2 stumbles for like one scene here, one scene there, as much as they could possibly have done in 4 episodes, they have done. And it'll be weird seeing the media assessing this. I mean, are there really other big shows this year? This is a relatively quiet spring because The Boys was the big thing everyone was watching, the big final season. It benefits that there aren't other giant shows coming out during the summer. And with Ahsoka pushed back to 2027, are people going to look back on 2026 and say this was the year of Game of Thrones again? This with A Knight of the Seven Kingdoms in combination. Were there other... People were hating on Euphoria. Season 3 was a dumpster fire, apparently, from all I've seen of it. And The Boys did respectably to wrap up everything it needed to. I know it had gone on for a bit, but other than that, will these end up being ultimately... Once again, in 2022, no one thought House of the Dragon Season 1 would be show of the year. It was all these, Game of Thrones is a dead franchise, and now... Will that happen again? I don't know. At this point, I'd just be happy with them delivering to the fans what we want. I'm not worried about the public stuff again. It can't really hurt us. We're already renewed for everything. But even I was like, the weirdness of seeing trending Emma Darcy needs an Emmy after episode 2. You really know, you would have said someone was lying if they told you that 6 months ago. Because I can predict what I will feel. I knew that I'm going to feel better. I knew that the strike delayed the ending. You can't predict how people are going to react. So I don't know. In terms of the wider online experience of the fandom and viewership numbers. As for my own channel on here, I said I wanted to end with a couple of status updates. I've fallen behind schedule the first 3 weeks of the show for 3 different reasons. Well, I thought I'd be cranking out daily lore videos, but there was a specific reason for each of these. That first week, at the last minute, I went to the official HBO premiere event in New York City, where there's like over 300 people at this big open-air screening down at Pier 17 on the South Street Seaport. That was great. They invited anyone who had like a YouTube or TikTok could get in if you just said, I'd cover this. So I wasn't like exclusive or anything. There was like 500 people there, but that was a wonderful experience and really got me psyched up for the reaction to the coming season will be great, because episode 1 alone blew people away. And it was like watching an open-air movie because it was a big action scene. Second week, I explained this in my community tab posts. I put a ton of work into a big video using sound clips of dragon commands. It was a big video on these are all of the dragon verbal commands in High Valyrian. And I said, I'll use video clips like 2 seconds each of each word, like Dracarys, Sauvez, all of that. Immediately got flagged by YouTube copyright, and ultimately I decided it wasn't worth it. I was going to lose, so I took it down. And I'm going to have to remake it into a truncated version that's just me saying the lines without the clips. That ate up a whole week, and for nothing. So that was really upsetting, but YouTube is really coming down hard on copyright for a lot of channels, bigger than mine. Like, I know Fantasy Haven, he's been talking about how he's been having copyright problems. Talking Thrones said his channel might cease to exist because he got so many copyright strikes. So big channels, and I've heard others mentioning this too, they're really tightening down on copyright now. So that ate up a week because I was trying to make this thing with clips of dragon commands. Lesson learned, never even tried to do that again. I thought, well, they're 2-second clips. How could this ever be anything? It's demonstrating the language, whatever. And then the week of episode 3, the weekend of episode 3, well, in the United States, that was July 4th weekend. It was a holiday weekend, so I was out with my family, the big family get-together barbecue with dozens of other people. So I managed to get into a premiere event, copyright problem on a video, and then the third week, well, it's July 4th weekend, it's a holiday weekend. Now I'm caught up on, there hasn't been problems. I actually managed to get the episode 4 review out by Tuesday instead of by Saturday. And next week, I have a lot of full vacation week coming up. Roughly around the same time as San Diego Comic-Con. Not that I'm going to San Diego Comic-Con. It's so crowded I wouldn't even voluntarily go. But that helps that I will be having a lot of free time at the same time as they're having like industry announcements and things. We're hoping to get announcements of other projects and stuff coming out of San Diego Comic-Con. We don't know. They are having a big screening event of episode 6 because it's going to have the big battle in it, the Butcher's Ball. There's a big event planned for the Saturday of San Diego Comic-Con with Ryan Condal and cast members presenting episode 6, and are they going to announce animated stuff or other things about the upcoming Aegon's Conquest movie? We don't know, but they tend to have big announcements out of that. So I'm going to have a lot of free time coming up that I didn't the first half of the season. Even though it's only 4 more damn episodes because we have shortened seasons, but I will be cranking out a ton of content I wasn't able to because of specific issues that came up week to week. I have a clear schedule going forward, and I'm not too upset because how can I be upset when this was perfect? I mean, the 99%, this managed to restore the show, and there isn't so much negativity going around anymore. I might be a little behind what I set for myself, but so is everyone. I haven't seen other channels. Other channels have to focus on their episode reviews and haven't even gotten out more than like 2 or 3 lore videos at most, just looking at the top dozen channels out there. So maybe I'm in good company. Well, everyone's really busy. We're processing all this new episode info. And other channels are having even worse copyright problems than I did. That just tripped me up for 1 week. Other channels like Fantasy Haven's been talking about that a lot, all the copyright stuff. Crusader Chris is having problems with that. Whatever. I was going to be cranking things out like an assembly line on this. But I wanted to do an informal podcast just to check in with you guys on... You can't really gauge how society will react to, my God, this actually was a really good show. Will we ever reach the heights of season 1 again? I don't know. But for me personally, for multiple other big names on the bigger names among the YouTube channels for this, no, it's very blatant to people that, oh, this was due to the strike delaying the ending, and this is actually really good again. So it'll be weird seeing how things evolve in the coming, like, rest of the year, 6 months, that people are starting to talk about this very positively again. Please join me there in the future.